As many of you know, the last 2 weeks have been a whirlwind since Prairie Brand landed a $30 million contract for ICE megacenters. As the one who first came across this contract, I feel morally obligated to follow up and ensure it isn't forgotten. Hi everyone, my name is Olivia Gum, and my passion project is researching federal contracts to promote government transparency and accountability. I publish a weekly report called Federal Contracting Snapshot that details the biggest dollar amount contracts and top agency spending for the week. When I pulled the data for November 28th, the day after Thanksgiving when most federal workers are off work, I found that KPB Services, LLC, a company with no prior contract history, was awarded a $30 million contract for the due diligence and design of ICE detention megacenters. Turns out that KBD has no website or online presence. Their listed address was only registered in April of 2025. And more importantly, only Sam registered to sell to the government only 1 week before the award was signed. I then Google mapped the business location, which is just 2 warehouses in the middle of nowhere. KBB Services lists its primary business as physician offices, a medical practice, yet the contract is for real estate design. Upon further research, KPB Services' address is shared by an economic development corporation called Prairie Band LLC, which is owned by the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. Like many tribal nations, Prairie Band operates corporate entities to generate revenue for community services, but most business decisions are made by executives and not the members. So I put together a report on KPB 2 weeks ago and sent it off to local news stations like KSNT and WBIW. What's happened since then is mind-blowing. I found multiple news stations covering the story of the 7-month-old company landing a $30 million ICE deal. Some reporters even attempted to go to the business location but were asked to leave, and some tried to contact people working for Prairie Band with no response. I did find a link where Prairie Band CEO responded to KSNT News, but now it says the page is not found. Their original statement defended the ICE contract, essentially saying it was fine because they were designing, not building the detention camps. That got the public angry because of the parallelism that Indian reservations were the first detention camps and that the contract goes against the principles of the Potawatomi Nation. So now the company is backtracking. First, they made announcements of firings of senior executives. However, no names, roles, or termination dates have been released. To add to suspicion, in the last few days, Prairie Band has removed any names from their leadership page. Luckily, there is Wayback Machine, which archives site pages, and we can see who was in charge before the ICE controversy. Secondly, on December 12th, the chairman released a 4-minute public apology to Prairie Band members, saying the contract is disappointing and they'll just do better next time. Of course, this public relations stunt didn't quiet anyone. This is the largest contract Prairie Band has ever been awarded. It is reasonable to infer for the complexity and dollar amount for designing detention facilities, a lot of time and resources went into putting a proposal together. This is not just one man's doing. On top of the firings of executives and the public apology, Prairie Band is now looking for ways to exit the contract. Because the chairman said that exiting the contract with KPB Services carries political and reputational risk, confirms that KPB directly operates under Prairie Band. It is to be determined if they can get out of the contract. Per federal acquisition regulation and terms and conditions, I'm curious to see the repercussions and even if terminating the contract is possible. At this point, the CEO, Jacob Wamego, is responsible. Under standard corporate guidance, the CEO is the one responsible for subsidiary formation, federal contracting strategy, and the oversight of senior executives. But after all these events in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten even more curious. What else does Prairie Band have up its sleeve? So their website lists 5 companies in government contracting. But after checking records, a total of 26 SAM registered businesses belong to the same Holton, Kansas address. Most of these entities were formed within the last 2 years, and many share the same points of contact. Mind you, companies highlighted in orange have already received federal contract awards. There needs to be a lot more research done here. But where does this lead us? I don't believe the majority of Prairie Band members knew what leadership was doing, although they may have still been benefiting. I believe whoever is involved in creating these shell companies and accepting contracts that don't hold to higher principles need to be removed. After that, I believe it's up to the members to keep those in power accountable. I will continue to report on any new findings through Federal Contracting Snapshot. I want to shout out to the local news stations that had the courage and inquisition to follow this story. Thank you all for listening. Your participation and transparency has resulted in real change.